going on, guys? This is Burrs. I'm here with Nate Murr, the inventor of the Gripstop, and we're going to talk to you today about bolt carrier groups.
So what I like to tell people is that the bolt carrying group is the heart and soul of the AR-15. I consider it the most important part of the entire rifle, more so than even the barrel, because if anything's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong. Odds are it's going to go wrong with the bolt carrier group here. Grab my little handy dandy multitasker here. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to disassemble the bolt real quick. We'll go ahead and drift out the firing pin retaining pin, which you can either push out with a pin, or you can catch your fingernail or knife tip and you pull out that little firing pin retaining pin. After I do that, give it a little smack, my firing pin slides out the back end of the bolt carrier. Next thing is I have my bolt push back, and I'm going to rotate out the cam pin, so that's a cam pin right there. And then lastly, I have my bolt. My bolt separates from the carrier. With my bolt disassembled, I use my firing pin to drift out the pin that holds the extractor claw. So I got that drifted out, pull it out, put it somewhere safe so where I don't lose it. And now I'm down to the actual bolt itself. So I have my extractor, I have my bolt. If I could only clean one part of this entire weapon, I would clean the bolt. So if you're like, hey, you have 5 minutes to clean your rifle, I'm gonna pull my bolt carrier out of the weapon and I'm gonna clean the bolt and lubricate the bolt. The reason why is that it's very tight tolerances inside the bolt. So where the bolt goes inside the carrier, there's not a whole lot of room. It's right below the gas key. So you have this little guy right here, the gas key. So you have all this searing hot propellant gas getting piped down into this area. So all that dirty, unburnt powder, heat, gas, it's all going right here. So we want to make sure this is clean. As long as I keep this lubricated, the weapon should function properly, as long as all the parts are in tolerance. So let's talk about the bolt here. If you look on the face of the bolt, you have all the different locking lugs. And then you also have this little round cylinder here, and that's your ejector. Your ejector is under spring tension and it doesn't really require any maintenance. But what I can do is I can push down on it with my firing pin, right? And I can feel good tension. Good heavy tension on it. That's the part of the bolt that actually puts pressure on the back of the casing and throws the casing out of the weapon once the bolt goes to the rear. I have my lugs and my bolt. What I do is when I clean my gun, I inspect those bolts, make sure, or those lugs, to make sure that the lugs don't have any cracks or any nicks or anything really worn on them. So on the back side of the bolt, you're going to notice that there's some little stainless steel rings here, right? These are called the gas rings. The gas rings function much like the rings on a piston in a car engine, right? So they create a seal. Now there's 3 of them, and they're split rings, so there's little gaps in between. There's an old wives' tale in the military that if you have all 3 of those little holes lined up, that your weapon's not gonna fire properly, the gun's gonna blow up and kill you. All kinds of bullshit I've heard from people. Unfortunately, it's a myth that's so old that I hear master sergeants and gunnery sergeants and all kinds of people that should know better. They've been gunning for a while, they should know. They'll be like, make sure you don't have your holes lined up. I challenge you to go line up your holes and in your gas rings and go function test your rifle, go shoot your rifle, whatever. Nothing's gonna happen. You can shoot this rifle, as long as it's an intolerance gas ring, you can shoot the rifle with a sole gas ring and it'll work, all right? So don't worry about those little spaces between the gas rings being all lined. It doesn't make a difference. As soon as the bolt starts to rotate back and forth, those gas rings are going to rotate on their own and they're going to misalign. All right, so that's nothing to worry about there. Next, we're going to talk about the extractor. So this is the actual extractor itself, separate from the bolt. Now, at the very front of the extractor, there's a little lip here. That little lip is what actually grabs the rim of the casing and pulls the casing out of the chamber. All right, so it grabs on the cartridge and locks on the rim of the casing. So what I do is when I clean this, I take my firing pin, I use it as a scraper tool, and I make sure that this is free of any carbon. You can take your toothbrush or your AP brush, whatever you want to do, and just make sure that the extractor claw is free of debris. That's one of the things that I absolutely check for when I'm doing a hasty clean on my gun. On the back side of your extractor, you have several different means of tension, all right? So what we have is a metal spring with a rubber core and then a black rubber O-ring on this particular one, right? The black rubber O-ring is a relatively new thing. I think it came out around 8 to 10 years ago. It's commonly referred to as the crane O-ring. The reason why that's been added to military guns, that little rubber O-ring, is that it creates a third means of tension. The issue was that shooting fully automatic M4A1s, guys were having problems with failures to extract. So this creates more tension, digging the claw deeper into the rim of the casing, make sure that you have positive hold of that casing when the bolts come in the rear. So that little rubber O-ring, all right, that's currently issued on all M16s, M4s, M4A1s, and Mark 18s. That's something that you don't necessarily need to have on your rifle. It's something that's nice to have. What I tell people is you can fire this weapon with 2 of the 3 means of tension, right? You definitely want the spring to be one of those 2 though. So you can have the spring with a rubber core or the spring with a rubber O-ring. And the rubber O-ring wears out. Nothing lasts forever. So you can get these things for like 50 cents to $1, $1.50 if somebody's trying to price gouge you. But they wear out. There's no schedule for maintenance on them. You just inspect them. If they're looking all gnarled up, then it's time to get a new one. It's good to have a couple in your range bag or in your your trapdoor compartment of your pistol grip if you have it, or your buttstock. I mean, I would say that if you make it 10,000 rounds and that O-ring is starting to look rough, it's probably best to change it out. If you don't have that little rubber O-ring, that crane O-ring, you can order them online very, very cheap, like I said. So it's nice to have. It's worth putting on your gun if you don't have one on your bolt.
Yeah. So what normally do you see, I mean, as far as, you know, being overseas and going through some tours and stuff, what normally do you see as failures in the bolt carrier group normally?
What you'll see, the bolt, if it's a high wear bolt, occasionally one of the lugs of the bolt will sear completely off. If that happened in combat, you just keep firing your weapon. You probably won't notice until you disassemble your weapon, or if that seared off lug somehow works its way down your trigger group or locks the gun up in some way, binds in the chamber, and now the bolt won't go in the battery. That's for extremely hard use guns getting shot extensively, or guns shot hard, as in they were getting shot on full auto a lot. What you'll mostly see is your gas rings wear out, and then the tension on your extractor wear out. I was helping out, doing some armory work for a special forces group, and they had a bunch of M4A1 upper receivers, and they were having an issue with extraction when shooting fully automatic. So all I did was I started changing out extractor springs and O-rings, and then all of a sudden their guns were good to go. So it's one of those things where you don't always know what's going to wear out and when it's going to wear out, and it's good to have a little survival kit. Guys will get spare springs, pins, that kind of stuff. Like, for example, when I was over in Iraq in 2004, I had a guy lose his firing pin, retaining pin. If I don't have this little $1 piece of metal, my weapon won't function, right? He lost this thing in the middle of the desert. We took a piece of wire, and instead of a Gerber, I actually made a cotter pin. That's all it really is a cotter pin.
Yeah.
So you can adapt and overcome if you need to, but instead of trying to fabricate your own part in the field, you're better off just having this one little piece in a little kit. I would just keep it in my cleaning kit, you know. But it's not just parts failing; it's parts disappearing. You know, it's all a bunch of little tiny stuff, like the retaining pin for the extractor. This little pin here, this thing's tiny. If you dropped it in the woods, like, you'll never find it. So it's good to have extra one of those. The extractor itself, like I said, there's guys that will carry a whole extractor assembly. It's very rare for the claw itself to fail, but it's metal and metal, so it can eventually start to wear away the ledge of the claw,
right,
where it makes a clean grasp on the casing. So what you'll find is a lot of guys, instead of like, I'm not gonna have this little piece, this little piece, this little piece, they'll just get a whole spare bolt. You can get a spare bolt. I mean, it's a buyer's market right now.
Yeah.
You can get a bolt for like $50 to $75. You buy a complete bolt carrying group, like the whole assembly, for like $100 right now. So it's worthwhile to have one on hand.
Would you say that, though, as far as, you know, the parts to the bolt carrier group, if you were to have something, that's what you'd want to have as far as a spare part?
If you're gonna have one spare part, definitely have a bolt. Just have the whole assembly. Like I said, it's $50. So put it like Magpul with their with their series of grips. They even make different cores where you can actually fit this guy inside your pistol grip. So you always have it with you. For me, I don't like to weigh my weapon down with batteries and spare parts and stuff like that. I would just put this in my cleaning kit.
Yeah.
And this will fit like in like the MS cleaning kit or the standard issue cleaning kit. It's one of those things where if you don't know what you're going to say before you say it, it's kind of hard to improv. So.